D.B. Cooper. The hijacking of Northwest Orient Flight 305 on November 24, 1971, remains the only unsolved case of air piracy in U.S. commercial aviation history. A man using the alias Dan Cooper boarded a Boeing 727 at Portland, Oregon, claimed he had a bomb, and demanded $200,000 in $20 bills and 4 parachutes. The FBI complied, and Cooper allowed passengers to deplane at Seattle before the aircraft departed toward Mexico City. Somewhere over southwest Washington state, he lowered the 727's aft air stairs and jumped into a rainstorm at around 10,000 feet. He was never seen again. In 1980, a partial bundle of ransom bills was found on the Columbia River, the only physical evidence ever recovered. The FBI investigated over 1,000 suspects before suspending active investigation in 2016. Boeing subsequently added the Cooper vane to all 727s to prevent the aft stairs from being lowered in flight. No confirmed identity has ever been established. Flying Tiger Line Flight 739. Flying Tiger Line Flight 739 vanished over the Western Pacific on March 16, 1962, carrying 107 people, 96 U.S. military personnel and 11 civilian crew from Guam to Clark Air Base in the Philippines. The aircraft was a Lockheed L-1049H Super Constellation. The flight maintained routine radio contact for over an hour after departing Guam before communications suddenly ceased with no distress call transmitted. A tanker crew reported seeing a burning aircraft break apart in the sky at approximately the time and location of the flight. Sabotage and in-flight explosion were both considered, but the Civil Aeronautics Board formally concluded it was unable to determine the probable cause. No part of the aircraft or its occupants was ever recovered. Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart was the most celebrated female aviator in history when she and navigator Fred Noonan disappeared over the Central Pacific during her attempt to circumnavigate the globe along an equatorial route. Flying a Lockheed Model 10E Electra, the pair departed Lae, New Guinea on July 2, 1937, bound for Howland Island, 2,556 miles away. Intermittent radio contact was received by the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Itasca, stationed at Howland, but accurate bearings could not be established. The aircraft never arrived. The subsequent search covered 250,000 square miles without finding wreckage or survivors. Competing theories have included ditching at sea, landing on Nikumaru Island and surviving briefly as castaways, supported by skeletal remains found on the island in the 1930s. And in January 2024, Deep Sea Vision announced sonar imagery suggesting an aircraft-shaped object near Howland Island. No physical wreckage has been definitively identified. TWA Flight 800. Trans World Airlines Flight 800 was a Boeing 747-100 that exploded and crashed into the Atlantic Ocean off Long Island, New York on July 17, 1996, killing all 230 people on board shortly after departing JFK for Paris. Witnesses on the ground reported seeing a streak of light ascending toward the aircraft before the explosion, prompting the FBI to launch a parallel criminal investigation alongside the NTSB inquiry, examining both missile strike and bomb as possible causes. After the most extensive aviation investigation in U.S. history to that date, recovering more than 95% of the wreckage, the NTSB concluded in 2000 that ignition of flammable fuel vapor in the center wing fuel tank, most likely from a short circuit, caused the explosion. In 2013, a group of former investigators publicly disputed this conclusion, claiming evidence of an external explosion had been suppressed. The FBI confirmed no criminal act occurred, but the eyewitness accounts of a rising streak of light have never been fully reconciled with the official explanation. Aer Lingus Flight 712. Aer Lingus Flight 712 was operating from Cork to London Heathrow on March 24, 1968, when its Vickers Viscount turboprop crashed into the Irish Sea off Tusker Rock, killing all 61 on board. The aircraft broke apart in flight, but no distress call was transmitted. Investigation found that a portion of the tail had separated, but could not determine what triggered the failure. Theories included a bird strike, metal fatigue, and corrosion. The most controversial hypothesis was that the aircraft had been struck by a surface-to-air missile during a British Ministry of Defense test in the Irish Sea that day, a claim consistently denied by the MOD. A 2002 Irish inquiry re-examined the evidence and again concluded the initiating event could not be identified. The case was reopened multiple times in subsequent years without resolution, making it one of the longest-standing unsolved accidents in European aviation history. EgyptAir Flight 990. EgyptAir Flight 990 was a Boeing 767-300ER that crashed into the Atlantic approximately 60 miles south of Nantucket on October 31, 1999, killing all 217 on board shortly after departing JFK for Cairo. The flight data recorder showed the autopilot being disconnected, followed by a rapid, uncommanded dive, and the cockpit voice recorder captured Relief First Officer Gamil al-Batouti repeating an Arabic phrase meaning "I rely on God" as the descent began, while the captain attempted to recover. The NTSB concluded the probable cause was the deliberate action of the Relief First Officer. Egypt's Civil Aviation Authority disputed this entirely, attributing the crash to a mechanical failure of the elevator control system. The two countries never reached agreement on the official cause, and the disagreement between investigators remains unresolved to this day. Helios Airways Flight 522. Helios Airways Flight 522 was a Boeing 737-300 operating from Larnaca to Athens on August 14, 2005, when it lost pressurization shortly after takeoff and continued flying on autopilot as the entire crew became incapacitated by hypoxia at cruise altitude. The aircraft, carrying 121 people, flew over Greece as a ghost flight, intercepted by Greek Air Force F-16s whose pilots observed the captain slumped over the controls. A flight attendant with some pilot training regained consciousness briefly and reached the cockpit, but the aircraft ran out of fuel and crashed into a hillside northeast of Athens, killing all on board. Investigation found the pressurization system had been left in manual mode after a maintenance check the previous evening, an error that should have been caught during pre-flight checks. The accident prompted fundamental changes to checklist design, crew alerting systems, and international protocols for intercepting unresponsive aircraft, and remains one of the most haunting accidents in European aviation history. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 is the most extensively searched and least explained disappearance in modern aviation history. The Boeing 777-200ER departed Kuala Lumpur at 12:41 morning on March 8, 2014, bound for Beijing with 239 people on board. 38 minutes after takeoff, contact was lost. Malaysian military radar tracked the aircraft making an unexpected turn back across the Malay Peninsula before disappearing at 2:22. Satellite data from Inmarsat revealed the aircraft continued flying for approximately 7 hours, most likely along a southern arc into the remote Indian Ocean west of Australia. Debris, unconfirmed as MH370 components, has washed ashore across the western Indian Ocean since 2015, but the main wreckage and flight recorders have never been found despite 3 formal deep-sea searches. The Malaysian Transport Ministry's 2018 final report concluded the cause could not be determined. A new private search by Ocean Infinity resumed in 2024. The fate of all 239 people remains officially unknown.